Morning all, hope you're doing well, hope you're staying safe. It's Monday the 1st of June, first day of hurricane season. Quite a little bit to get through today, so let's get into it right now. Headlines today, US cases still dropping a little bit. I've actually included now the number of deaths per day. You can actually see the 7-day moving average, exactly where we are, and there's no guesswork in that now. Florida cases still a little bit up and down. I did include the death chart for that as well. A little bit of an issue on a Sunday that you can see for yourself what happens on a Sunday. It's a bit bizarre. Cases are being monitored before we go into phase 2. So phase 2 is supposed to bring in theme parks. I've got a bit of a rundown about exactly what phase 2 means and how cases are being monitored through phase 2, before phase 2, through phase 2 and after phase 2, just to make sure that there are no spikes. Hurricane preparedness is now underway. The sales tax holiday is underway for essentials for hurricane preparedness, so I've got a bit on that. Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings yesterday enacted a curfew that will run from 10 o'clock till 5 o'clock, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. until it's rescinded. That's in the wake of the death of George Floyd and the protests that have been taking place across America and across Florida. As a result of that, City Walk closed early yesterday, as did Disney Springs. They've got earlier closing times now than they did have before. I guess they're going to run now until the curfew ceases. There were protests in Orlando on Saturday night and yesterday night, bit of news on that. Disney is to resume talks with the NBA on Thursday. It now says that families are going to join them in September, so if the season runs for a couple of months, that means that a heck of a lot more rooms may be taken up. We still don't know yet when those rooms are going to be released, which resorts are going to be released and when. So that's still all up in the air right now. And then finally, the Universal Orlando hotels open tomorrow, and only 2 of those hotels are not opening. And if you're staying in a Universal hotel, second and third, you've got a very big incentive to stay there now, so news on that. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you'll get this stuff still 6 days a week right now. As soon as this news starts to slacken off, I won't be doing it every day. I'll be back in the parks, hopefully. I don't have a Universal annual pass, so I won't be there on the 3rd, 4th or 5th, I'm afraid. The first park I'm going to get into is SeaWorld, hopefully on the 11th of June. So bear with me with that. I will still bring you news on what's happened over the team member days and the annual pass holder days too. Okay, let's get to the news. New cases in the US on Saturday was 23,290 and on Sunday 20,350. I've included the daily death chart for the whole of the US and the 7-day moving average so that you can see that on the whole we are dropping. In Florida, after the spike on Friday, on Saturday we had 927 new cases and yesterday we had 739. As I said a couple of days ago, in order to take out the spikes caused by the backlog of new cases, I'm now looking at daily deaths as well. On Saturday, 34 deaths were recorded in Florida and yesterday 5 deaths were recorded. I'm now going to have to review if this makes sense either, because as you can maybe see from the chart, every Sunday we only have very, very few deaths. I don't know if that's because people don't like to die on a Sunday or this chart's just wrong. As we move into our unofficial Phase 2 reopening today, with the opening of Universal Studios to team members, people are still asking when will the real Phase 2 start. Phase 1 started on May the 4th and we haven't seen a spike in cases over that period. Dr. J. Wolfson of USF Health's College of Public Health said, "From a public health perspective, we want to make sure we have enough testing data, enough surveillance data for our entire community. We want to be able to monitor how we're doing that and to be able to test people all the way through these next several months to be able to detect whether there's a spike." Phase 2 includes expanding retail and F&B outlets to 75% capacity and sporting venues to open at 50% capacity. Bars and nightclubs can reopen at 50% capacity and non-essential travel can resume. Today is the 1st of June and marks the start of hurricane season. Governor Ron DeSantis and Florida Department of Emergency Management Director Jared Moskowitz spoke on Friday about how they were going to deal with hurricane season during the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes being able to get tested at certain DIY stores while you're out shopping. More important than that though is in the case of a hurricane evacuation order being given, that people who are symptomatic of the COVID-19 virus are not placed in the same shelter as people who are not. On Friday, the sales tax holiday started so that people could get prepared for hurricane season. Between now and June the 4th, people can buy hurricane essentials without having to pay sales tax on those items. In the wake of violent protests happening in some cities around the US and in Florida, Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings yesterday signed into law a curfew order. This order runs from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. every day until it's cancelled. In response to this, Universal City Walk will now close at 8 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. And yesterday Disney Springs closed at 7 p.m. instead of its normal 9 p.m. It's not known whether this 7 p.m. will be modified to 8 o'clock or remain at 7 o'clock. There have been protests in Orlando, but they appear to have been largely peaceful. Protesters briefly blocked the 408 on Saturday and I-4 for a very brief time yesterday. Some acts of vandalism have been reported, but no looting. It's still not known when Disney resorts will reopen. Talks with the NBA are due to resume on Thursday, and it's now being reported that the NBA players' families would not join them until September, with the July 31st date set for the resumption of the NBA season. I come up with a number of 2,000 rooms as being required for the NBA teams plus entourages. If families are joining them, this could now double at least and could be 5,000 or 6,000 rooms. It may be some time yet then before we know which resorts will be open for the public and when. Finally, Universal Orlando hotels are due to open tomorrow. All hotels will be open except for Endless Summers Dockside and the Portofino Bay. Guests staying at Universal on-site hotels will be able to gain entry to all three of its parks on June 3rd and 4th, ahead of the public opening on June the 5th. So US cases, I hope you can see from that the death rate, 7-day moving average, that we are as a whole moving down. The bizarre thing about Florida, I'm not sure what goes on with those cases, whether those cases don't get recorded on the day, whether they're backlogged, I don't know. If they are, then that kind of still makes a mockery out of the whole system, that we can't really tell what's happening day to day. I will keep an eye on it. I still think the death rate chart is better than the new cases chart. Cases being monitored before we move into phase 2. We're in de facto phase 2 from today because the theme parks are reopening. Still no news on exactly when Governor DeSantis is going to declare phase 2 open. We've been in full phase 2 now for exactly 2 weeks. No spikes have really occurred in that time. Any spike we've had has been attributed to a backlog of cases. So I think it's just a matter of time now before we do get into phase 2. So things can open at 75% capacity, and sporting venues can reopen at 50% capacity, which is why the NBA are still discussing things with Disney. Hurricane preparedness, yes, we are in hurricane season again now. That runs through to the end of October. Hurricanes now usually come towards the end of the season, so the big ones come in September, October, early October. But it's good that the state is looking at how we can deal with people who still have symptoms versus those who don't in the event of an evacuation being mandatory. Orange County curfew, yes, unfortunately a curfew was put in place yesterday by Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings. I think that was a very good thing to try and get ahead of any problems that may ensue. Tampa did face its own problems on Saturday night, and I think it was good that Jerry Demings got way in front of that. There was a big police presence in central Orlando, downtown Orlando yesterday. Protesters did briefly block the 408 on Saturday and did briefly block I-4 yesterday. Tear gas was used to disperse people. I haven't heard of any big injuries or any looting. There was, I believe, minor vandalism, but no looting and no deaths. So I think what's happened in Orlando is better than a lot of other places. I do hope that curfew order can be rescinded as soon as possible. Obviously, in wake of that, the Disney Springs and Universal City Walk have had to close early. I'm sure they will be closing early. I don't know whether Disney Springs will close as early as 7 o'clock as it did last night, or whether it will now move to 8 o'clock. But they'll have to close early until that curfew order is rescinded. The NBA in talks with Disney again to reopen their season here at the Wide World of Sports. 2,000 rooms I thought was going to be available because I didn't think families were going to come down. Now it appears that they are at the end of September. So I don't know whether the resorts are going to be open prior to September, whether they're just going to block book a number of resorts up to the end of September, because it's going to take at least 2 months to finish that season. So it might be that, if 6,000 rooms are required, that could be maybe 4 or 5 resorts that are taken out. And we don't know, and I guess Disney don't know which ones they are yet, so they're not opening any rooms up to anybody right now. Remembering that Disney reopens Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom on the 11th of July, and the other parks on the 15th of July. They still haven't announced water park openings, although they are available, all of them, from the 11th of, or the both of them, from the 11th of July. So we still wait to hear from from Disney on availability of resort hotel rooms. Nothing yet for people from the UK. They're expecting to hear something from Disney today. I'm not exactly sure what that is going to be. Disney obviously can't mandate the return to Disney World for people outside of the US until the US lifts its restrictions on international travel. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there today. I'll bring you news of that tomorrow. And that's it for today. That's the news for today. I'll see you again tomorrow with more. Until then, stay safe, take care. See you then. Bye-bye.